Today, I'm going to show you how to use artboards in Photoshop. Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace, and you can find me on Phlearn.com, where we make learning Photoshop and photography fun. And today's episode is all about artboards, which are perfect for web designers, user interface, and user experience designers. Basically, what artboards are a way to preview your designs across different devices. Let's say you're designing a web page and you want to know how it's going to look on a big 27-inch iMac, or you want to see how it looks on a 15-inch MacBook Pro and also on an iPhone. You can get previews for each one of these and design them specifically for those different devices. So in today's episode, we're going to create a couple of artboards and change our designs around, giving you tips on using smart objects as well, so you don't lose any resolution when you scale and move your objects around. Today's episode is going to be awesome, and it's great for you guys who are designing for multiple devices. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into Photoshop. So artboards are all about designing. Now, I've got a sample web page here. This is actually the Phlearn web page released for Photoshop 101 through 301, and all of my elements are already broken down. Now, in this case, we're going to go ahead and start by creating a new object, and it's going to be an artboard. So let's go up here to File, and we're going to go to New. So here we can see document type, where you can choose anything you want. Basically, you would have your default would be just a regular Photoshop or whatever it is. In this case, we're going to click on Artboard. So here, document type, we're going to click on Artboard. Now here we can also choose our size. So we can choose, these are all preloaded within Photoshop. You can also load custom sizes as well. So let's go ahead and start off with a 27-inch iMac, and it gives us the screen resolution of our iMac. So let's go ahead and click there. Okay, there we go, and our background is going to be white. Looks good. Let's go ahead and hit OK. All right, I'm going to hit F for full screen and then Command minus a couple times to zoom out. So here we have a preview basically of our screen for a 27-inch iMac. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what's different from a normal basically Photoshop document. So we do have layers, and we can work with layers and groups and everything else like that, but here our layers are actually nested within the artboard. So let's click on our artboard here. Now, the Artboard tool is underneath the Move tool. So if you click and hold on the Move tool, you'll see the Artboard tool shows up. And as I click on the Artboard tool, now I can actually resize my artboard. Let's zoom out here, and I can actually create a new artboard. If I just want a custom one, I can simply click here, there we go, and create a new custom artboard at any size. Now, to delete it, just click on your artboard and drag it down to the trash. Now, if you want to duplicate an artboard, simply click on these pluses at any top, middle, bottom, left, or right. If I click on the right side, it's going to duplicate an artboard there on the right. And I can actually change the size of my artboard as well. All right, so let's go ahead and start off. We're going to delete this artboard. There we go. We're just going to work with this artboard for now. Now, I'm going to hit F a couple times to go back to full screen. And here, I went ahead and brought in these documents. Now, in this case, I've already designed out this web page. I already know pretty much how all the elements are going to go together. What we're going to be doing together is designing how it's going to look on a 27-inch screen, on like a 15-inch screen, and on an iPhone as well. So I've got all these elements ready to go. Now, I've already converted these to smart objects, which I would highly recommend doing. The reason I recommend creating smart objects is because if you take a smart object and you resize it smaller and then make it larger again, you don't lose any resolution. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing, right? We're going to be scaling these up and down. So when working with artboards, I highly suggest working with smart objects. All right, let's go ahead and jump back in, get our smart objects onto our first artboard, and start designing. So here we have our web page. Now, basically, I've just pulled in screenshots from the existing web page because we've already designed it. Now, in this case, we're going to be working on creating multiple versions. Now, these are already all created as smart objects to save some time. But here we have our header. At the very top, you can see the header of Phlearn.com is currently not a smart object. It looks like a regular layer. So let's go ahead and convert that into a smart object. Very easy to do. You can right-click and go to Convert to a Smart Object, or you can go to Layer, down to Smart Objects, and over to Convert to a Smart Object. And you can see, now that it has that icon, you know that we are using a smart object. Okay, so here let's go ahead and click on Artboard 1, And then we're going to simply shift click on these layers. We're going to right click and we're going to go to duplicate layers. All right, so we're going to go to duplicate layers. Now, here it's going to ask us where we want to put it. So document here, we're going to click on Untitled 1. That's what we're working with. You can see it says Untitled 1 right there. And it's going to ask us which artboard we'd like to paste into. So let's go ahead and duplicate into that artboard. Let's hit OK there. All right, click here and hit F for full screen. And here we can see there are our documents. Now, some of them are in the artboard, some of them managed to make their way out. So let's go ahead and shift click and drag them into this artboard as well. All right, we want to make sure everything is in the artboard. All right, there we go. We'll just go one by one. Now, the way an artboard works, basically it's going to clip all of these objects to just the artboard. Okay, so they're only going to be visible exactly where this artboard is visible. All right, now in this case, zooming in a little bit, I can see that obviously we've got a scrolling website, okay? So I need a little bit more room. What we're gonna do is go back to our artboard tool, okay? There we go, let's click on our artboard, and then I'm gonna go right down here to the bottom, and we're just gonna give ourselves a little bit more room. Let's go ahead, we'll go a little bit farther. There we go, maybe zoom out and go even more. All right, there we go. We'll see how that looks there. Okay. Now what we're going to do, let's go ahead and start by resizing some of our documents. We just need to make these a little bit larger. So here are my smart objects here. Let's hit Control or Command T. We're just going to size them up just a little bit. There we go. And hit Enter. All right. Now we're going to use a Move tool. So I'm going to hit V for the Move tool. And this is the fastest way that I've found to actually select different objects. So with your move tool selected, you can hold Control or Command and click on any layer. Okay, so Control or Command and click here, and it's going to go ahead and select out that layer. There we go. So we can just hit Control or Command and click on these different items here, these different documents. There we go, Photoshop 101, that's going to be at the top. That'll be at the top. All right, let's go ahead and make this is for 301, so let's bring Photoshop 301 there. All right, and we actually haven't released Photoshop 101 through 301 just yet, so for those of you guys who are big Phlearn fans, this is like, dang, pre-release idea, what we're going to be learning. There we go. This was just the best example that we currently had right now of like, okay, this is something that you would actually do with artboards. All right, let's bring Photoshop 201 up there. There we go. Our header is going to go way up here at the top, right? And Control or Command. I'm just hitting Control or Command and clicking on these guys here. And we're going to bring Photoshop 101. Now, if you want to select a couple of different objects, okay, like I'd like to bring this guy and this guy up. So I'm going to hold Control and Shift and click them both. And you can see both of those layers get selected. So as I bring these up, both of them are going to go up at the same time. All right, let's hit Control and then bring that down there. So working with our layout here, basically this is like what we want our full screen layout to look like. Now we can go ahead and zoom in and act like we're on a web page and say like, oh cool, this is, all right, there's a little preview of it, you know, the Phlearn menu bar at the top. This is scrolling and here's what we're going to look like when we're in full screen. Okay, so now we've got a pretty good idea of what this is actually going to look like on a 27-inch iMac, which is perfect. So this is our first artboard, and we successfully created our first artboard. So now what we're going to do is create a couple of more artboards in different sizes and change our layout for each of those sizes. So jumping back in, we've got our first artboard. Now we're going to go ahead and select on our artboard tool. There we are, and let's click on Artboard 1. So we can see we have these plus icons which will add new artboards, basically just creating a duplicate of the current artboard we have. Now in this case, if you just click on this plus icon here on the right, let's do it a couple of times so you can see, here we've got two more artboards. So for instance, if I wanted to rearrange these icons and do different types of designs on the same exact screen size, we could do that. Now let's just hit undo a couple of times. With our artboard tool, we can also hold Alt or Option. So you can see, just if I'm hovering over my plus, it's just going to create a new artboard. If I hold Alt or Option on my keyboard, now we've got a duplicate symbol. You can see we have a black and white arrow. So if I click there, what it's going to do is it's going to create a new document and it's going to duplicate all of the content from the existing document. Okay, so let's click on our Artboard 1 copy. Now we're going to go to Window and down to Properties. Okay, and this is the properties of my second artboard. So here we can actually choose our second size. All right, now in the first case we chose an iMac 27-inch. Okay, now we're going to choose a MacBook Pro 15-inch. So let's go ahead and click there. All right, and you can see our artboard has totally changed. We've got a different size now. So let's go ahead and click here on the bottom of our artboard. We will need to go ahead and make that a little bit longer. There we go. So this is our second artboard, and we can change the name of our artboard if we want. Let's just simply click on here, 15-inch. There we go, and MacBook. All right. We'll call this one 27-inch iMac. Okay. Now let's do the same thing one more time. I'm going to hold Alt or Option and click here. There we go. And now on our copy here, let's go ahead and close that down so we can see what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and make this the same as our iPhone. So again, to change the resolution, to change your artboard preset here, like if you're clicking on these, it's not going to do anything, right? So make sure, again, you're clicking here on your actual artboard itself. You've got your Properties window open, which you can get to by going to Window and down to Properties. And then here on your size, let's just choose the iPhone 6. Okay. Now it shows a standard size for an iPhone 6. That makes total sense if you wanted to have everything there in just one screen. But in this case, again, we are going to be scrolling, so let's go ahead and pull that down and scroll that. Okay, great. So now we have our different formats plugged into Photoshop. We've got our 27-inch iMac, we've got our 15-inch MacBook Pro, and we've got an iPhone 6. And you can see the iPhone 6 is way slimmer, which in this case, I think it should be designed a little bit different. Maybe we're going to have the images and then the text rather than have those be side by side. So let's go ahead and jump back in and make sure that our designs are actually working for our different size formats and for our different devices. So jumping back in, we're going to go ahead and start off with our 15-inch MacBook. So let's make our iPhone 6 invisible for now. Now our 15-inch MacBook, we're going to go ahead and zoom in and start taking a look at each one of these screen elements. So I know already I'm going to have to resize these. So let's simply click on all of our documents there and hit Control or Command T, and we're going to go ahead and resize them. Now if I don't get this right exactly, it's not a huge deal because I have all of these loaded as smart objects. So we can go ahead and make sure that we can make them as large or as small as we want, and we're not going to lose resolution. All right, there we go. Yep, in this case, we do need to make them just a little bit larger. So let's hit Control or Command T and stretch those up just a little bit. There we go. Now, in this case, that looks pretty good, and we can go ahead and go back to our Artboard tool. There we go. Click on our MacBook, and we can go ahead and bring this up a little bit. There we go. Now, so we can see that we're going to scroll less on our MacBook than we did on our 27 iMac. Okay, let's go ahead and make our iPhone visible. Now, in this case, we are going to make some design changes as well. So let's go ahead. We've got an extra layer in here. Let's delete that out. Let's shift-click on all of those layers, hit Control or Command T, and we're going to go ahead and scale them down just a little bit. There we go. Now, we'll start off with our header. Okay, let's just zoom into our header there. All right, here we have our header. Now we can scroll this down, or you can load in multiple different types of headers. So for instance, if we have this a little bit larger, Phlearn, we could go to Shop, Tutorials, and then if I had a new layer, let's just go ahead and zoom in here, a new layer right on top of that. Let's get rid of this About item. All right, so I'm going to make a new layer and fill it with this color. And then right on top of that, what we're going to do, I'm going to go to the Rounded Rectangle tool. There we go. And we're going to create like a little menu that basically, like a little menu item that says, all right, you know, click on this and you'll be able to access more. So hit Control or Command J to make a couple of those. Control or Command J is just the duplicate key. There we go. And now we have a couple of those. Let's group those together. All right. There we go. And just move that right up there. So if we're working with a design team, or let's say you are the designer for the website, then basically you could give them the artboards and say, okay, when you collapse everything for mobile, you know, this is exactly what you need, and this is going to activate the menu. All right. Next, we're going to click here, and we have our nice icon, and then we have all of our information to the right of that icon. So let's go ahead and duplicate that. I'm going to hit Control or Command J. We're going to get our information now. Let's just go ahead and scale that down. So we're going to have our information on one side, and then in this case, I just need to hide the information on the other side. So let's go ahead and select that over. Okay, and there we go. So let's make this a little bit larger. Now again, I'm working with screenshots from our actual website that we've already created. If you guys were working with raw items, obviously this would be a slightly different process. So keep that in mind. But I can still hand these to a web developer and say, okay, make it look like this, please. And they have a lot more to go on. They can say like, okay, cool, this is how it should look on mobile. This is how it should look on a large screen and a small screen, because honestly, mobile is so big these days that if you're not designing, for mobile, you're really going to miss out on a lot of your audience. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and start bringing up our images here. So this is going to be our first image. There we go. And then we have some bullet points here within our first image. So you can see, instead of doing a left and right format, we're going to do there we go. We're going to go ahead and make it a top to bottom. So when you hand this over to a web designer, they're going to know, okay, this is, they're designing a responsive web page here. There we go. And I'm going to have to make this a little bit larger here. So let's go back to our iPhone 6. Let's go to our Artboard tool, and we'll go ahead and stretch that out. All right. So again, when you give this to your designer, they're going to know, okay, this is designed to be on a responsive website, and I've got to enter in all the correct CSS to make sure that it does resize correctly, and that the CSS, there we go, will go ahead, and in this case, I think we can have it included in your download section. We'll just make this a little bit smaller there. There we go. And then we've got bullet points both to the left and the right there. All right, so let's go ahead and duplicate those bullet points, and we're just going to stack them. So I'm going to use my marquee tool here. There we go. Let's go ahead and click on layer mask on there. So we just have that visible. There we go. And next we have our other bullet points. There we go. And we're going to just stack these. So basically what I'm doing is, instead of doing a left and right setup there, we've got a top and bottom. And then on a new layer here, we're just going to grab this color, and I'm going to use my marquee tool, and we're just going to fill with this color here. There we go. So we'll say in a single column, I want them just to stack like this, the benefits in this tutorial. Okay, and we'll go ahead and grab our Artboard tool. There we go. Let's click on our iPhone 6, and we'll just click and drag this. There we go, and we'll say that we want to be the end of the page. All right, so basically, that's how you use Artboards in Photoshop. So here we have our web page for the Photoshop 101 through 301 tutorials, which, by the way, they're awesome tutorials. Little plug there. But this is how you use the actual tools. So here we have our previews across different devices. And now that I know, okay, this is what it's actually going to display. This is what it's going to look like on an iPhone 6, a 15-inch MacBook, and a 27-inch iMac. And then I can give my developers all of these options, and then they can actually create working files. All right, so everything that we've done up until now is basically exactly how you would use an artboard. Now, to add to this, we're going to show you how to use linked smart objects on artboards. And this is a case where maybe you're working on a logo and you want a couple of different logo variations and you want it to automatically update across multiple artboards. We're going to show you how to do that using linked smart objects. So jumping back into Photoshop, we've got our artboards. Now, in this case, let's say we were working on a logo and we wanted to put it in different artboards, and any changes I've made to that logo, we want to automatically update. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, we're going to start by opening up our logo. I'm going to go to File, down to Open. In this case, we're just going to open up the Phlearn logo. right? Makes sense. And now we're going to go ahead and start placing this as a linked object in our different documents. Okay, so let's go ahead and close down these different guys. Now, I have my iPhone 6. We've got our header, okay, and then we've got everything else. I'm going to just clean this up a little bit by just shift-clicking and hitting Control or Command G and just call this content. All right, let's do the same thing with our MacBook Pro. There we go. Just call this content. There we go. And our 27-inch iMac, Control or Command G, and we'll call that content. There we go. See how it's nice and cleaned up. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with our iPhone 6 here. I'm going to go to File and down to Place Linked. Okay, and we're just going to choose this document. Now, it's the exact same thing that I've got open here. So we're going to hit Place. Okay, it's going to place that right in the center. Let's go ahead and just make this a little bit larger. There we go. We'll hit Enter, and I'm going to bring this right up to the very top. Now, this is not necessarily how I would design the page. There we go. But in this case, there we go. It is just a good example on how to use Place Linked. So let's go ahead and use our Artboard tool here. Let's click on our Artboard, give us a little bit more space, right? We need all that space we can get. There we go. And now we have our Phlearn logo right here. We'll zoom in a second so you guys can see the idea. Okay, now here on this layer, we're going to do the same thing. So File, Place Linked. Okay, we're going to choose the exact same object. You can do this as many times as you want, by the way. You don't have to, you could link this out over and over and over again. It does not mind. All right, let's go ahead and bring our content down just a little bit. All right, the Phlearn logo, let's just make it a little bit smaller. All right, there we go. And use our Artboard tool to just give us a little bit more space on this guy as well. There we go. And here in our 27-inch iMac, we're going to do the same thing. So we'll just go to Place Linked. There we go. And it's the same. So we're just placing the same document over and over again. All right, in our different artboards. There we go. Bring that to the top. And let's go ahead and pull our content down. And again, we need just a little bit more room. Okay, so why did I do all this stuff? Well, basically, by placing a linked document, let's go ahead and zoom in here. So hit F for full screen, and we can see, maybe, all right, cool, we want to lead with our Phlearn logo on each one of these. Why not, right? By placing a linked document, let's say that you were not completely done designing your logo for the website, okay? So let's say that, okay, we want to make some changes here, but when I make changes to my original document, I don't want to go and save those out and re-upload them across a bunch of different documents. I just want it all to be automatic, and that's why you use Place Linked, because it makes it all automatic. Okay, so now let's go ahead and zoom out just a little bit here. There we are. Now we're going to make some changes to our original document. Now this is, remember, it's the exact same document that I linked with each of these three. Let's go ahead and pull those in so you can get a good idea there. Okay, now in this case, let's simply double click right here on our layer, all right? And let's say we want to give it a little bit of a stroke. So I'm going to click here on stroke. We're going to go to red, all right? And we're going to make it inside, and then I'm going to bring this stroke width up, which, by the way, looks horrible. So obviously this is not what we're going to do, but all I have to do is make the change on this document and hit Control or Command S, and it's going to automatically update across all of my documents. So I can see, does this fit with the design language of our of our actual tutorials? And in this case, it's no, it most definitely does not. So let's go ahead and double click on our effects. We'll turn our stroke off, and maybe we'll try a color overlay instead. It's something that fits more with our tutorials. So we're going to choose our color, and now we can use our eyedropper, and we'll just go ahead and choose this green color for, there we go. Let's go a little bit darker with that. Hit OK, and hit OK, and go ahead and hit Control or Command S to save that out. And say, okay, this is what the Phlearn logo looks like across all of our different pages now in this different color. All right, you could even do, if you wanted to create a new layer, I'm going to go ahead and clip that. And in this case, we'll just go ahead and create a little bit of a gradient. There we go, from top to bottom there. There we go. Let's just turn this. There we go. We had a color overlay, so that's now working. Let's do a color overlay, and let's double click on here, and we'll do a gradient overlay as well. Let's turn our color overlay off. All right, we'll bring the opacity down just a little bit. There we go, and hit OK. Control or Command S to save that out. And there we have a little bit of a gradient. And you can try, in this case, let me just real quick, we're going to right click here. I'm going to rasterize everything. All right, let's hit Control or Command E to just bring everything together. And if you wanted to work on your letter spacing and things like that, you could bring your N out or something like that. And it's going to automatically update across all of your documents. All right, cool. So in my opinion, using place linked objects with artboards is just a really cool practice because you can just update your logo or your design once and it's going to automatically update across all of your devices. All right, guys, let's go ahead and zoom that out. And I think this looks great. Really, really nice layout. And it works on the 27-inch iMac, the 15-inch MacBook Pro, and our iPhone 6. All right, guys, and that's how I use artboards in Photoshop. Now, almost done here. The last thing we're going to go ahead and do is save these out so you could actually give these to a web developer and they can actually use these as objects to design after. So let's go ahead and show you how to save them out and then we'll be done. So to save out your artboards, you can do it in a couple of ways. If you just want to get a quick JPEG out of what you're doing here, simply click on your artboard itself. Okay, you can go to Quick Export as a JPEG. All right, and it's basically just going to just quickly export out your JPEG. There we go. It's an iPhone 6.jpg. There we go. And let's go ahead and hit the space bar and preview that. And there we see our iPhone 6 is just that. It's a flattened file exported out really quickly. Okay, you can also go to right click and export as. There we go. And it's going to bring up a little window here. You're going to have a lot more settings in your export as window. All right, just as soon as it brings it up. There we go. Takes a little bit of time. Okay, and here you can choose to have this be a PNG, a JPEG, a GIF, or an SVG, and you can change your sizes as well. All right, now we can also click on our artboard, go to File, and down to Export, and then export artboards to PDF or artboards to files. So you could go ahead and separate everything out to files or as a PDF. There we go. You can see we could open this up in any PDF viewer and make it a multi-page document. Everything, all the PDF settings you would normally have. So let's go ahead and cancel there, but you can see there are a lot of settings for exporting out your artboards so you can send them to clients. All right, guys, and that's how we use artboards in Photoshop. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I know there was a ton to go over, but if you guys are a user experience, user interface, or a graphic designer, artboards can be very, very helpful. Thanks so much for watching today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you love Photoshop as much as I do, go ahead and click on your screen right about now. We'll send you free Photoshop and photography episodes every single week. Thanks so much for watching Phlearn, guys. I'll Phlearn you later. Bye, everyone. Now, this would be great if you were actually working on a logo. In this case, our logo is finalized, but if you're working on your logo, one more time. What am I? My head's gone. One more time. Go back to this again.